The theater lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the audience. Cameras zoomed in on a man standing barefoot in the center of the grand stage, his hands trembling around a microphone too big for his calloused fingers. His name was Rico Mendoza, a janitor who had spent years cleaning this very floor after others performed. The judges barely looked up when he entered. His shirt still bore a faint stain from the mop he used that morning. He didn't look like someone chasing fame. He looked like someone chasing peace. But when he opened his mouth, the first note stopped the world. A haunting, soulful echo of Elvis Presley filled the air, not an imitation, but something deeper, rawer, almost holy. The audience leaned forward, the theater itself seemed to breathe with him. Simon, the famously unshakable judge, lowered his pen mid-note. By the chorus, people were crying. Every lyric trembled with untold pain, of years lost to struggle, of a dream carried silently in tired hands. It wasn't just a song, it was a confession. A lifetime of sacrifice poured into melody. When the last chord faded, silence swept the room, thick, reverent, infinite. Simon blinked, speechless. Cameras captured tears streaking down his face as he whispered, barely audible, that wasn't a performance. Rico lifted his eyes, voice trembling, it was my father's goodbye song. A shiver rippled through the audience. The judges' table gleamed under the stage lights, but Simon's gaze softened, stripped of cynicism. The man who had judged thousands suddenly found no words to measure what he'd heard. And in that fragile silence, Rico smiled faintly, because this moment wasn't about winning. It was about finally letting his father's voice live again, through him. The next morning, the world knew Rico Mendoza's name. His performance had gone viral overnight, millions of hearts replaying the trembling voice, wondering how a janitor could sing like that. But behind that song was a story few could imagine. Years ago, Rico's father had been a bar singer, a man known by everyone in their small town as the Filipino Elvis. He wasn't rich, but he was proud. Every night, he'd perform for strangers under flickering lights, sending home every penny so his family could eat. One night, on his way home from a gig, a storm swept his small boat away. They never found him. Rico was 12, holding onto his mother as waves crashed outside their window, waiting for footsteps that never came. After that night, he stopped singing. Music became a ghost that hurt too much to hear. Years later, while sweeping a dusty backstage corner, Rico saw a battered guitar hanging in a pawn shop window. Something about it made him stop. The shopkeeper said, "Someone donated this years ago, said it carried too many memories." Rico turned it over and saw a small carving on the wood, +LM, Dreamers. His parents' initials. It was his father's guitar. That night, he sat alone, strumming the out-of-tune strings, whispering through tears, "If I ever get one chance, I'll sing your goodbye properly." Life moved on. He mopped floors in the same theater where others chased dreams. Until one evening, a judge passing by smiled kindly and said, "You've got kind eyes, my friend. Ever tried singing?" That single act of recognition reignited a promise buried deep inside him. And when the auditions came, Rico walked barefoot on that stage, wearing his father's jacket and a prayer in his heart. Backstage, Rico stood quietly among the flashing lights and nervous chatter. Performers stretched, rehearsed, laughed, but he simply watched, hands clasped, heart thudding softly like the old guitar he used to play. He was used to being invisible. Years of cleaning theaters had taught him that the world rarely looked twice at the man behind the broom. But as he waited for his turn, he noticed a young janitor sweeping near the exit, humming an old Elvis tune under his breath. It made Rico smile. The boy reminded him of himself, full of quiet dreams too scared to speak aloud. Rico walked over, handed the boy his spare audition number, and whispered, "Hold this for me. You might need it someday." The boy looked confused, then smiled shyly, pocketing the number like it was gold. When Rico's name was called, he took a deep breath and stepped into the light, barefoot, humble, grounded. His father's voice echoed in his memory, "Son, you sing better when your feet touch the earth." Each lyric he sang became a bridge between the life he lived and the one he once imagined. The audience didn't hear an imitation of Elvis, they heard a man pouring his entire soul into each note, each tremor. When the final note faded, Simon stood, tears glinting beneath the lights. "That wasn't a performance," he whispered. "That was truth." Rico bowed his head, emotion trembling in his chest. If you ever find someone sweeping floors, he said softly, remember, they might be holding a dream too big to fit in their pocket. Backstage, the young janitor still held Rico's audition number, tears falling freely as he whispered to himself, maybe dreams like ours really can come true. As Rico stepped off the stage, still dazed from the standing ovation, a producer rushed up to him, breathless. Rico, wait, there's something you need to see. Confused, he followed them toward the giant backstage screen. The crowd quieted as a live feed flickered on. There, in the green room, stood an elderly woman trembling, clutching a faded photograph of a young man in an Elvis suit. Rico's breath caught. It was his mother. Her hands shook as she stared at the monitor, tears streaming down her face. She had thought her son was still sweeping floors, not standing before the world. The moment she heard his voice, her legs gave way. He finally sang his father's song, she whispered before fainting into the arms of the staff. The judges gasped. Simon looked stunned. Get her on stage, he said softly. Moments later, the curtain parted, and Rico's mother appeared under the bright lights, frail, overwhelmed, but radiant. Rico dropped to his knees as she approached, the audience rising to their feet in silent awe. He wrapped his arms around her, sobbing, as she whispered, your father always believed you'd finish what he started. Simon wiped his eyes and leaned toward his microphone. Your family gave the world something no record label ever could, pure humanity. The golden microphone the judges had gifted him gleamed under the spotlight. Rico placed it gently in his mother's hands. This isn't mine, he said. It's ours. The crowd erupted in applause, tears glistening everywhere. For a moment, the world wasn't watching a competition, it was witnessing a promise fulfilled, a family reunited through a song that refused to die. The music that once broke their hearts had now made them whole again. Months passed, and Rico's name became a symbol of hope rather than fame. He turned down record deals and TV contracts, choosing instead to create something that mattered, a small foundation called The Gentle Impact. Its purpose was simple yet profound: to give children of janitors, drivers, and laborers the chance to learn music, to find their voice before the world could silence it. He often said, fame fades, but kindness sings forever. Every year, on the anniversary of his audition, Rico would return to that same theater. No lights, no judges, no crowd, just him, barefoot, holding his father's old guitar. He'd close his eyes, play the same song, and smile. One evening, a familiar face appeared backstage, the young janitor who once held Rico's audition number. He was now grown, trembling, guitar in hand. I kept your number, the boy said, voice cracking. It reminded me that even people like us deserve a stage. Rico hugged him, eyes wet. Then sing, he whispered, and make it count. The boy walked into the spotlight, strumming softly, singing the same song that had changed Rico's life. When he finished, he looked into the crowd and said, this is for Rico, the man who gave me his chance, and his hope. Simon, watching from the front row, stood once more, whispering, some voices don't just perform, they heal humanity. As the lights dimmed and the final chord faded, Rico smiled through tears, knowing the legacy was no longer his alone. His father's dream had become a movement, a gentle impact rippling through hearts across the world, reminding everyone that the greatest music isn't heard, it's felt.